I have the great privilege of sitting in my hometown parish right now. And it brings back so many warm and beautiful memories. I'm a convert to the faith. And I remember vividly when I was around 14 years old, sitting in one of the pews and looking up at the stained glass and thinking about faith and God and the reality of His presence in my life. And it hit me. I was so overwhelmed by a feeling of His love for me. That moment changed me forever as a young woman. I was at such a vulnerable age. I was at an age when I was trying to figure out who I am and what was important in life. And at that age, women are so vulnerable. We receive so many messages about what's important. But what I learned in that moment was that it didn't matter what I looked like, what I wore, whether I was popular or not, whether I had a boyfriend or not. None of that mattered. The only thing that mattered was that I was loved and cherished by God. That He created me for a purpose, that He loved me no matter what, and that He would never abandon me. I've carried that message with me to this very day. And I think it's important to think about that reality when we consider the relationship between the church and women. Because as women, we often receive very confusing messages in our culture. Our mainstream culture likes to try to tell us that the church is somehow against women or oppressive to women. That has not been my experience. In reality, my faith has given me a framework to understand my identity, that I'm equal in dignity to men and to other people, that I have a particular power to influence for the good, that I'm cherished, that I'm not valued because of the way I look or who I hang out with. I'm valued because I'm a beloved daughter of God. We see this beautifully revealed in the Gospels. One of my favorite Gospel passages is when Jesus encounters the Samaritan woman at the well. That's from John chapter 4. And we see in that passage that Jesus has gone out of His way to meet this woman. And He sees her walking to Him in the heat of the day. She's coming to the well around noon, which is interesting because at that time, women would go to the well in the morning when it was cooler. And we find out later why. But Jesus sees her, and as she arrives, He asks her for a drink. This surprises her because He's a Jew and she's a Samaritan, and they really didn't talk to each other. Plus, she was a woman and he was a man, and that was also beyond the social norms. So Jesus asks her for a drink, and she spars with him a little bit. She gives him a little bit of a hard time, and he spars back. He sees in her a sparkling intelligence, a wit, and a sincerity and an honesty. And they develop this beautiful conversation. And as the conversation goes on, you can see how her trust in him begins to develop. He talks about being living water. And by the end of the conversation, she is revealing some powerful things to him. At one point, she admits that she's living with a man who's not her husband. And he says to her, "Yes, I know, that's true. In fact, you have had 5 husbands." This astounds her, but she also feels safe with him because she knows that he's not there to hurt her. He goes on to instruct her about the way of God and how he is the Messiah. In fact, she is the one who identifies him as the Messiah, which is powerful in and of itself. By the end of the conversation, she is healed, so much so that she goes back into town without shame of who she is, and begins to tell the townspeople all about this interaction with this Messiah. And she ultimately brings other people into relationship with him. This is such a beautiful passage because we see that Jesus truly sees her. She's not invisible to him. She's not just another random person. She's not an object to be used. He sees this woman in her entirety. He values her. He enjoys her intelligence. He befriends her, and he heals her. And he helps satisfy the very deep desires of her heart to be healed and to be part of her community again. This is consistent in all of the passages of the gospel involving Jesus and women. We see it in the passage with the Canaanite woman, with the woman caught in adultery, with the woman of ill repute who comes into the house of the Pharisee and wipes Jesus' feet with her tears and hair. In all of these cases, we realize that none of these women are invisible to God. All of them are loved. All of them have a mission. All of them are cherished, beloved daughters. So what the church reveals to us about ourselves as women is that we are special, we are unique, that we have a particular power to influence, and that the Lord desires our healing regardless of where we are at in life, regardless of whatever our experiences have been. The Lord desires us to be whole and happy and to have peace. God is one who values women, and therefore the church values women. Again, some of the messaging that we receive in our culture can be confusing. So if you're interested in studying more about why the church teaches what it teaches, I would highly recommend a book called Women, Sex, and the Church, edited by Erica Bacciacci. It's a compendium of essays written by women of varying backgrounds, doctors, psychologists, sociologists, who actually have studied their own disciplines and studied church teaching and make a case for the church's teaching, especially in regard to controversial issues like abortion and birth control and why women can't be priests. And they actually develop a beautiful framework for social justice, which is very pro-woman, if I can use that phrase. So I encourage you to study more, but most importantly, I encourage you to embrace the love that God has for you as a beloved daughter.